Hello, everybody, and I'm very excited. What a great day we've had so far. If you've been watching, you know that we've got lots of new talent and voices. We covered a lot today that was more in the, I guess I would call it, future direction of where we're going, what the opportunities really are. And I love following the most recent one with an even step further into the future. So I'd really love to welcome my favorite futurist, Steve Greenfield. And Steve, would you tell us a little bit about your many experiences?
Sure, with cats or with automotive?
Well, you can shock everybody with how many. We were just talking about all his cats. He is Mr.
No,
Cat.
I won't do that because I think some on the call probably would be shocked. At very least, they would be judging me. So let's leave that aside.
But
But
you're
yeah,
but you're so kind to help them. I do want to say that.
we are rescuing cats. It's my side hustle, my side hustle. But
Right.
yeah, I've been in the automotive industry for about 25 years, and at this point in my career, have done a lot of things. But I'm very excited now, 5 years ago, to pivot pretty dramatically with my career. We're now investing very early stage as a venture capital firm. We're on a third fund. We've made 48 investments over 5 years, and we're really hunting for truly talented entrepreneurs who are solving really big problems anywhere across the mobility spectrum.
And I love that you know to use the word mobility, right? That was part
Right?
of kind of the end of your journey is you collected that viewpoint. And so you're actually very often sought for opinion and vision around that. We were just talking about your travel schedule
Yeah.
and just so you guys all know, I don't know any of you viewers noticed, but I have updated my background. Now I'm not a digital background person. I am a analog background person, if you all even know what that word means. And so yesterday I had United States behind me. Today I've flipped that because I knew I was going to be talking to Steve and talking
Here we
about
go.
the world. So tell us a little bit about what you're going to be doing that week of the 20th of October.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's very topical, and thank you for doing that. It's a good segue. So I am starting to, well, I'm very thankful that we're building this brand out and this awareness. But we are getting more opportunities now to either speak and or get investors internationally. You and I talked, a few months back. One of our largest investors now is the largest dealer group in Kazakhstan. And for those that aren't familiar with the geography, it's kind of nestled between Russia and China and very interesting market, embracing a lot of like Western capitalist sort of ideals, but historically was part of Russia, the USSR. And the auto market is growing very, very quickly. And we now have the largest dealer group in Kazakhstan, who's one of our investors. And I've now spent two trips over there in the last 6 months, helping them understand how the US market and Western markets have evolved from a new and used vehicle standpoint, but then also, trying to think through the building blocks that have yet to be built over there and how they might participate. To your point, in a week, I'm in the same week, I'm in both Mexico. Well, I'll see you in San Diego. That same week, I'm down in
At
Mexico
Fleet Forward,
at Fleet Forward. That's
Fleet
right.
Forward,
Yeah.
which by the way is very commercial.
And you and I will both be on stage at various times
Yep.
over that week. And then we will, I'll be heading via Chicago to Mexico City for the largest tech conference. We've now got the third largest dealer group in Mexico, who's one of our investors as well. So working on them similarly on the technology ecosystem down in Mexico and how we might uniquely help grow it, but at the same time participate maybe with some investments into entrepreneurs in Mexico.
Mhm.
And then at the tail end of that week, I'm flying from Mexico over to Italy, to Bologna, to do a presentation at the Enzo Ferrari Museum, which I'm just very honored. Also on the future of mobility and more specifically how that might impact automakers and dealers over on the European continent. So
Mhm.
cramming a lot of international travel into one week, which is not necessarily the best thing. But yeah, listen, I'm very flattered, Catherine, that one, I get to meet people like you. Two, that we now get to expand the aperture a little bit beyond just the US and look at some of these international markets. And we can't tell the future, but we can see how the automotive ecosystem has evolved in various markets around the world draw parallels and then try to extrapolate those parallels into like insights that would help these international markets. So I hope that I will continue to, a few times a year, get drawn into these international markets. And maybe, Catherine, when you're ready, we'll be
Ooh,
traveling together.
I did move my map, but I think what's so exciting is that when you go to some place like, um, well, certainly Kazakhstan, I mean, they have no existing infrastructure, right? So
Well,
you're,
well, in many ways. So it's a good question. So they do have the infrastructure from the old USSR days, but a good example is
but
when
let's
we
just
were,
all say that that's really not
yeah.
a good place to start from even, right?
Yeah, so it's hard to decide where to start. So, in December when we were there, we observed no price guides, no Carfax, no nothing to counter odometer fraud, and no auto auctions.
Do they have
And
dealers?
oh yeah, they have dealers, but they call them flippers because they typically have 1 to 3 vehicles, used vehicles, and they flip them and make a profit. So the
Wow.
scale of what we understand is even independent dealers, never mind franchise dealers, is just quite different, quite different. But so amazing though how quickly these markets can evolve. We were back there in July,
Right?
not 7 months later. And we witnessed the first ever dealer conference in Kazakhstan, 600 dealers in the audience. We had
Wow.
an opportunity to present. During that conference, they launched the first Carfax-like product, vehicle history product, in
Wow.
the country at that conference, 7 months after we were there the first time.
Right.
And they conducted the first auto auction. They auctioned 7 vehicles only to the dealers in the audience. They had to download an app. The cars were there co-located, and they sold all 7. So it's amazing, with the because these markets can evolve so quickly and
Right.
aren't wedded to your point, aren't
The
wedded to
point. Yeah.
processes. They can start with a blank sheet of paper and innovate very, very quickly.
Yeah. And with learning from all the it's like a big buffet of different approaches and stuff like that. Truly innovative and entrepreneurial, right? Wow, that's fun. And when you go to Italy, that's more of a kind of advisory and investment approach. How, are they looking at how to consider what's going on in Italy, or are they looking more at what's going on across other opportunities to invest?
Yeah, so the world has flattened, obviously, and we see that
Mhm.
really most notably with the Chinese cars coming into every market
Right.
around the world very aggressively. But yeah, they're looking for insights in terms of, what are the trends that are going to impact automotive
Hmm.
and how they might benefit from those either through direct investments or existing companies and understanding what the tailwinds and headwinds are going to be for large companies that they might already be invested in, but I think equally interested in new technologies that are likely to emerge
Right.
and opportunities to potentially directly invest into some of those early stage new technologies.
So 10 years ago, maybe, I was at the first National Truck Equipment Association Executive Leadership Summit, which I just loved because, for me, that's how we learn. We get a
Hmm.
group of smart, experienced people together and, spend a day and a half together and talk about stuff. And what I found then was that in the commercial space, up until then, the commercial products, the vehicles, had been very different in the United States compared to Europe.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Hmm.
there was the beginning of the realization, I'll call, maybe even the trend of equalizing and standardizing, which
Right.
of course was happening in a lot of other places in the world of business. But in this place, I watched as it became, well, yeah, pretty easy to think about how you could be in more than one country market.
Yep.
But still, I'm always curious about the dealership model in different countries, obviously, and how that works. And so, just from your perspective, and I'm surprised that I haven't really ever asked you of this before, but do you see commercial as you're going through Europe or any of these other countries? Do you see how they think about it?
Yes, I think I hate to generalize, but I think just the business model is very similar. The scale is a lot smaller.
Right,
And you'll feel this when you are driving through smaller cities in Europe, for example. You'll see just a commercial vehicle dealer might have three parking spots or something.
right.
And it's still enough for a family to survive on in terms of the
Mhm.
profitability. But these dealers often come to the U.S. and see the scale of the size of the dealerships. And if you've grown up in the U.S., you kind of take it for granted. But for them to
Right,
see a dealership that can park 100 vehicles, it's amazing. It's something that they've never ever seen before. So the dealership model and even the facades look very similar, but typically the scale is
right.
dramatically smaller.
Well, and a part of what I did see as I saw, like a lot of times it's very order based. I mean, there isn't a lot of vehicles, right? It's you can come into the office and see catalog-y stuff, right?
Sure. Yep.
More. And of course, I it'll be very interesting. Maybe I'll start, maybe you got me triggered to start thinking
Aha.
about this, but maybe I'll
Yeah.
see how things are ordered. I love for, one of the things I love the most about the commercial industry is when you look at what the vehicles become, it is so relevant to the use case. So it would
Right.
be very curious to kind of reverse engineer it in my head and say, well, what is the use case in, Bologna?
Right.
Like, what is there? I mean, is there agriculture around there? Is it all, is obviously there's refuse. There's all these,
Right.
there's certain categories of things that are going to be exactly the same as what we see. And then there's going to be other stuff, things that I would be like, oh, you're a canal fixer, right? I don't know,
Well,
right?
maybe you need to come down to one of these trips down to Mexico with me, and we'll spend some time with some commercial dealers, and you can tell me how different they are vis-a-vis like the U.S.
Yeah,
counterparts. I imagine they wrestle with exactly the same things, ordering the right vehicles, making
sure.
enough profit through that process, marketing those vehicles, finding the right customers, et cetera, all the things that you help them with. But
Right.
yeah, it would be very interesting to see if there's a close enough analog to what we see in the U.S., or if there are big deltas, what those deltas are.
I'm guessing, just from my experience in the US with Mexico uh, transplants, how much there's going to be a lot of similarities,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
certainly in certain vocations. I mean, we know that landscaping and there's a whole set of vocations that have really culturally expanded into Hispanic
Hmm.
operation,
Hmm.
and so they've, you know, a lot of our dealers put Spanish on their website, right?
Sure.
A lot of dealers are focused on targeting the buyers of those kinds of use cases. And
Right.
so I'm thinking we have a little bit of a head start, especially being in California,
Right.
because,
Yeah.
we're now, I don't know, 56%, something like that bilingual. So,
Okay. That's great. Yeah. Yeah. Well, there you go. So I think this is begging for a trip to Mexico sometime soon.
well, is it Mexico City that you're meeting people?
I am this time. We were to Guadalajara and Monterrey last trip a few
Hmm,
months ago. But
okay.
yeah, typically it's the larger cities that we're going to.
Yeah. I've been down there a number of times. My previous company, we actually had a distributor in Mexico, so
Okay.
it was software, hardware, and so I'll have to remember all the cool things that I did. I actually went to a bullfight. I don't know, are they still doing
Oh,
bullfights
wow.
in Mexico
I don't know. I hope not, but I imagine that they are.
City?
Yikes.
It was so weird when I was there. It was the day that the full eclipse was happening,
Oh,
which was
wow.
a while ago. And we all went up on the roof and it was cloudy and we were all so sad. And then all of a
Uh,
sudden it cleared, the eclipse happened,
got
and
dark.
then it got cloudy again. It was
Oh,
magical.
wow. There you go.
Yeah. So.
And this,
Um, I think that too, we were talking a little bit about just technology in general.
mhm, mhm.
You asked me a little bit about AI. I mentioned that our panel just before this We're
Yeah,
really
right,
diving into some of the practicalities of it, the value. How do you measure the value of AI?
right.
What are you seeing in automotive today that where the big values are coming from?
Yeah, so I think that the unlock is yet to really hit us. I think the unlock will be phase one productivity gains for every employee, especially those employees that are doing repetitive tasks. And it doesn't matter what role. It doesn't matter if it's on an automaker or if it's at a dealership or anywhere along the supply
Right.
chain. And then, that will ultimately evolve to like the agents that we can task with doing discrete roles, which
Hmm.
ultimately will evolve to replacing humans. Not so much with, Terminator-like Elon Musk Optimus robots, but more around,
But I
hey,
did watch that Kung Fu robot
yeah, did
video.
you read through that?
I
Yeah,
did.
yeah. Catherine's referring to recently in the last week, there was a Kung Fu video that Tesla released where they had one of their Optimus robots fighting or pseudo fighting a human. And it's interesting to see. But to extrapolate that out, it's got interesting implications for all of us. But listen, I think coming back to it, we're seeing the first wave of sort of AI powered technology coming in that's doing things like answering the phones. And, you know, amazing stats when you think about the average dealer doesn't answer the phone 50% of the time during working hours
No.
and doesn't answer the phone at all after hours.
And
And that's
doesn't
all
even
just
make sure that the phone, when it's answered, gets the job done of where they need,
right,
who they need to
right,
be talking to. Yeah.
right. So we've got a number of solutions that are emerging, powered by AI, that are going to allow dealers for the first phase to answer the phones 24/7 every time. And to your point, answer them more accurately. Customer satisfaction will go up, business will go up. It gets more complex when you enable the AI to start making outbound calls or emails or chats, and you harvest the CRM. So, for example,
Right.
I've got Catherine, who's been a loyal customer and has bought her last three vehicles from me, and she always services her vehicles with me. But for some reason, I haven't seen her for 6 months. Well, those customers like Catherine typically fall through the cracks because dealers don't have an automated way to go through and harvest that intelligence from their CRM and then take action against it. I mean, if you're counting on a salesperson who's already too busy and getting
Right.
inundated with leads, they're not going to go through and identify the Catherines of the world that may have defected to go to a different dealership. And I think, we're on the cusp of using AI in a practical manner just to run operations better. I mean, everything I've just described is a more efficient operation. You can
Hmm.
do more with the same amount of human headcount.
Right.
Customers will be happier, and you're going to drive more revenue and profitability.
I absolutely agree with you. And what's even more interesting is for us, and I think I told you that we are getting ready to launch a commercial CRM in the first quarter
Yeah, I'm excited. And
26.
hopefully it's going to be AI enabled.
Well, of course it will be.
There you
And to
go.
me, when listening to what you're saying, it's like all the things that are uniquely commercial. Like, for example, it's Catherine's business, and yet I keep getting these stupid retail outbound emails that aren't, by the way, tied to any kind of brain
Right.
power of in any way, shape,
Right.
or form. And I might get two or three of them because I get one for every vehicle I've purchased
Right.
even if I bought them all at the same time, which by the way, today the desking is you have to do one vehicle at a time, right?
Right. Right.
And so it's just one of the biggest complaints in the B2B world is that they're being treated like a consumer, and it's very annoying. And it's not, I mean, sometimes it's the annoying factor. It's not
Right.
even, um, it's not helping. It's just a reminder of how dumb everything is right now.
Right,
So,
which in one way it could sound like a pessimistic outlook, but at the same time, lots of upside. I mean, I think especially in
oh yeah,
automotive, there's so much upside just to like be thoughtful when you do reach out to me, how you're going to reach out to me. And, if
yeah.
I no longer own that vehicle, then don't talk to me about bringing the vehicle in for service. And
Hmm.
if I've bought, 10 vehicles recently in my fleet, then that should be, to your point, a very different outreach than a retail consumer who's driving a passenger vehicle. But
Right.
up until now, and up until your CRM product that's coming out here shortly, I don't think that dealers have had the opportunity to be able to think critically around how does a commercial customer think and how should they be approached in terms of outreach?
And it's all about uptime. Our research shows that businesses, small businesses, local businesses, regional, lose $3,000 to $5,000 a day when their vehicle is down.
Right.
What that means then is if they go into a normal service lane and they're
Right. Right.
being not prioritized, right? That means they aren't going to be customers for very long for the dealership. And I just love this concept now that we're finally getting to about we should be treating customers individually, right? Oh,
Hmm.
and that
Hmm.
reminds me, that was a big question I had because I know that you've been doing a lot of things around accessories
Yep.
and aftermarket. And when I was at Autovate a couple of weeks ago, I wish I could remember who it was, but one of the speakers mentioned when they were asked, well, what's going to happen in 25 years by Cliff? They answered that they thought every vehicle was going to be customized, and
Ah,
that their proof point was that today the aftermarket business is a $500 billion business right now, and that
right.
people are more and more wanting to make their vehicle something unique. And I'm like, well, that makes sense because
Yep.
they are so not, right?
Right.
And
Yep.
watching that, and of course, being an old school, gearhead, right? Loving the older cars that are so unique. So I thought, oh my gosh, our company is a configuration tracking company. This is going to be
Right.
right? Like what
Right.
happens to the vehicle? Like
Yep.
how does it become unique? So are
Right.
you seeing that trend also? That
Yeah.
people want to do that?
I think so. I mean, and just think of the consumer today. Like, look at your home screen on your phone, and you can see one of my cats there. But your home screen is going to look very different than my home screen. And I think
Hmm.
consumers are going to crave that differentiation. And the war is going to be waged around software, which is very interesting, that the OEMs typically aren't very good at. No offense to any of the OEMs dialing in, but I think they would be first to admit it. And to really unlock customization, i.e., your driving, your cabin experience is quite different than mine. This is all going to be based on software and configuration, et cetera, as you would think around an Android or iPhone as well. And all of that is where I think the war is going to be waged to figure out how we're going to be able to allow the user, no matter what the use case is, to customize a commercial vehicle to their needs. I might need more horsepower than you. I might be willing to sacrifice less horsepower for more range on my
Hmm.
vehicle, whether it's an ICE vehicle, diesel, or it's electrification or a hybrid. And
Hmm.
allow the customer to dictate how they want the vehicle
Right.
configured. Now, there's going to be hard options that get added on afterwards.
Yep.
There's also going to be a lot of software apps and that whole ecosystem around how I configure and make trade-offs with my configuration of the vehicle. And so I think it's going to be very interesting. The next 25 years, I think it's going to be much more prominent to be thinking about software-enabled customization. Right now, when you say the things that you say, I think more about hard options you add on or deduct
Right.
from a vehicle. But we also have to be thinking about a future where a lot of that optimization, that customization is going to be driven from software choices.
Oh, I love it. I mean, my past company was hardware software. I'm so glad to be away from hardware. Um,
Right.
and one of the comments, and again, I forget who it was, made some kind of comment about, well, our vehicles will be our medical assessment
Mhm.
uh, tools. Like,
Right.
because they'll be connected and you'll be sitting in it, it'll be able to sense you and tell you when you're, and I'm like, okay, I mean, I already think that that's an interesting area. Why not have the ergonomics of a vehicle, right?
Right.
Be involved with that. Like, yeah, the chair, it's almost like, well, would you do it for a chair at home that you're sitting in and make it connect? Or a vehicle that you've already designated as the way that you have mobility, right? I don't know. And I don't, I mentioned this earlier in one of my sessions. The last week had my first Waymo experience.
Oh, and
It
what was
was
that like? What was
it
that
was
like?
fabulous, but it was so funny because the first part it showed up and I could Bluetooth the color, but the door wouldn't open. And then I'm texting
Ah,
and they went, "Oh, too late." And then I had to order another one. And then I
oh
finally got
wow.
one.
Wow.
And
Okay.
then I when I got to the airport, it took me to the wrong terminal. the right
Oh boy.
gate, but the wrong terminal. So anyway,
Oh
that
boy.
part was, I'm like,
Funky.
oh, okay. But the trip itself was phenomenal.
Right.
It was absolutely great. And I'm like, yes, this is, I was a very slow enthusiast on this. But I have to
Right.
say, over the last 5, 7 years, driving in traffic with people that are so bad at driving, I've become much more enthusiastic about this transition.
Yeah, listen, I use Uber a lot when I travel around to various
Mhm.
cities, and it's an app that usually works in most cities around the world now, which is just amazing. You can get off, plane in I was in Helsinki recently over in Finland 2 weeks ago, and you can use Uber there. It's like, okay, this is great, right? A
Yep.
true universal app. But I always think when I hop into an Uber at like midnight in some city, I'm like, there's an unwritten contract between me and the driver. But really, I mean, you think about it,
Yeah, no.
I'm counting that that driver values their life as much as I value my
Yeah.
life. And what I don't know is if they have a drug problem, if they're hungover, if they're
Yep.
drunk at the moment. And, they're driving this piece of metal, this 3,000 pound piece of metal at 100 kilometers or 60 miles an hour down the highway,
Yep.
within inches of other 3,000 pound
Oh,
cars
yeah.
driving equally fast. And so what are you going to trust more? At least with
Yep.
Waymo, you're going to be able to look inside the black box and say, how is it going to make decisions?
Yep.
With a human, you have all these human frailties that you
Right.
count on as an Uber driver. So I do think we've seen the future. I would encourage anyone who gets a chance, whether you're in San Francisco
Right.
or in
Phoenix.
Arizona or wherever, give it a shot, even if you're reluctant. It's transformational technology and it's coming. I think it'll only be really in dense urban areas for the next few years, but you're going to start to see a proliferation, especially with
I think
Waymo,
so.
in cities. And I welcome it. I think I'm very interested to see how all this is going to play out in the short term.
Well, we talked earlier about how about 90% of all truck crashes are caused by human error,
Right.
Class 8 trucks. So there's a lot of there's also some real business practical things going on, right? That will drive that technology because of practical, you know, uh, ROI reasons.
Yeah, I mean,
You know,
one of the big breakthrough fleet technologies in the last few years has been, a driver monitoring.
yep,
Not outbound cameras, but inbound
yep,
cameras looking for
yeah.
drowsiness,
And
inebriation, whatever,
yeah, and
lack of focus texting.
it's not Big Brother, it's actually safety and health and helping the
Right,
drivers because drivers have a very high incident of early death because of bad health,
right, right.
diabetes and overweight and all of that. Well, you know what, Steve, we can talk. Like I never have to worry about whether or not I can fill up time talking with you. And I really appreciate that you always join us. We are looking forward to April 22nd and 23rd. We've already set the date for our next one. So on the 23rd, we'll be together, of course, a million times before then. I also would like to invite everybody to fill out a survey so that people like Steve and I know if there's ideas or extra things that you might like us to talk about, either within a session or across the whole theme, which I've loved this theme. This is to me, that concept of what triggers innovation and change is, challenges that always do. Don't forget that in the platform, up by the chat, there's a little button for the docs. We have a number of slide decks that you can download. And Steve, I don't even think I need to have a separate goodbye. We'll both just wave goodbye to everybody and say thank you for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.